The first line of defense was the last few ships we still had up and running. Every man on board knew this was a suicide mission, but saving their families and the Spartan heritage was good enough for them. The approaching admiral was their first target. It was the largest amphibious assault the world had ever seen. The cavalry had already engaged with the infantry close behind. But luckily for the garrison, King Areus had just arrived with his host of Spartan hoplites. The Roman legatus in command of the attack was on the front lines inspiring his men, but with a clever move by the local archers to fire over the grain storage buildings and into the flank followed up with multiple spear wounds, the cowards scourged back into their ships. A combined effort from Poseidon and Ares was too much for the Roman guards. The aging King Areus felt too much blood had been spilled already and decided to free anyone captured. The ransom alone was enough to help with what else was in store for the Spartans. In the cold north, Pulpediva suffered from massive amounts of attrition, a perfect opportunity to acquire a stable income for the conflict against Rome and their false gods. Oh, and the slave revolt? They proved only to be a nuisance. I believe their leader called himself Crixus or something. I'm not sure, but they would over time suffer from a lack of supplies and thus get taken out by our Greek allies. Thinking about it, all of our enemies, apart from Rome, were suffering from a lack of food. Could it be Demeter, who blessed us with her power? A gift we would use to fair effect. Take out the tribes of the region and seize the walled city along with its sanctuary of the great gods. However, the food problem seemed to have no ending in sight, forcing Gallienus to fall back into more hospitable territory. Still, the new land was a necessity for the Spartans, as Rome kept their offense going. If not for the Athenian-inspired fleet, Apollonia would have fallen already. Yet the troubling situation in Thrace seemed to nerve the Spartan king, seeking to end the northern struggle as swiftly as possible. All to face the more urgent conflict in a cohesive strike after. While they did that, the fleet would start raiding the Roman trade route, not uncontested by the way. Just one battle after the other. I can imagine their kill count was around the 100,000 or so. Nevertheless, sly ship tactics won't help in Thrace, where a revolt captured the city in our absence. It required a combined strike from both King Areus and Gallienus, the Fool of Greece, to outmaneuver the barbarians outside, crush them and subjugate the town this time. Originally, this was thought to be a good idea, as now the Spartans didn't need to garrison the town. If only the greedy Macedonians didn't declare war on them the following winter. Purely for diplomatic reasons, the Spartans supported their minor ally. But in secret, they made a peace deal with Antigonus II of Macedonia for a great sum of gold. Some may say they should have stayed in the fight to finally capture Athens for their own and establish trade agreements with all their allies. But those people forget all the Spartans just wasted their life in Thrace, leaving the warrior nation only with a fleet as their only defense against the Romans and nothing to deal with the combined Macedonian and Athenian threat. There was no option about that deal. However, there was still some positive going on. Although our intel was limited, the reports of an undefended Italy seemed to gain the interest of the Spartan elite. They gathered everything they had at Apollonia under the command of Gallienus. King Areus would formally have to lead the invasion, but with him in his 70s, everyone thought it better for him to stay at home and embezzle money for the war effort. It was a long journey across the Adriatic. Thankfully, the Illyrian pirates were on our side, or else the expedition could have been a lot rougher. However, unknown to the soldiers at sea, a beggar priest from Delphi had arrived in Sparta, babbling off the oracle's ill omens. Whatever these meant could not be answered in time. It was already too late. Gallienus had arrived in Asculum, entering the belly of the beast. Inside the town, they found maps marking the locations of 2 armies in Sicily. They were far away, but it was only a matter of months before they arrived. Gallienus ordered the fleet to sail down and create some havoc for them. However, there is the saying, appear strong where you are weak, and weak where you are strong. This surprisingly well-equipped army, with weapons unlike anything we've ever seen before, hit the hoplites hard. And after a quick merge, the army was short of 4 units. Yet to our rescue came 200 Samnite cavalry, pleading to stay by our side as long as we attempted to save that town in Beneventum. And so they did, forcing a field battle to use the speed of our combined Samnite and Tarentine cavalry and liberate Beneventum. But the heavy upkeep of the Spartan army started to take its toll on the nation's economy. This war had to end. A decisive attack on their capital could end everything. With whatever men they still had left, Gallienus marched for Rome. King Areus did as much as he could to gather enough gold for a few more mercenaries. But with Larissa ruined by a recent fire hazard and our subject under siege, it was obvious our economy was crumbling. With legions crossing in from the south, he had to be swift. But right before the gates of Rome, Decimus Brutus struck through the fog of war. Outnumbered with no reinforcements, this battle would decide the outcome of this war. No cunning tactics, no nonsense. If they wanna fight, let them come. Their cavalry ran at full force towards our flanks. The Samnites would try to intercept them. As our hoplites had pinned down most of the Romans, we pulled our archers over to the left flank, giving them a perfect angle to fire straight into the weapon side of the enemy. They were uncontested too, as the Samnites had killed off the Roman cavalry to hunt down the enemy skirmishers. cavalry had finally returned from their skirmisher hunt to do rear charges on the enemy infantry. The Spartans might have won the day, but at what cost? The casualties were simply too high for Gallienus and his victorious men to follow up with an assault on Rome. Not without reinforcements, at least. He recalled the fleet and set sail to Greece, where the inexperienced heir, Acritatus II, had been commanded to gather every male Spartan to the army. Getting home wasn't an easy task either, as the Romans kept harassing the fleet. At least at sea, they were no real threat. As they continued further down the coast, it was clear they prepared for an invasion of Apollonia. This time building ships to remove our only advantage. Gallienus made it back to Greece, but only due to the sacrifice of the Spartan admiral Heraclitus, who crushed the Roman invasion force quickly enough to return back to the transports before they ran out of supplies. Once back on shore, the Spartan general and the heir took out a few rebels raiding the land in a joint effort. The first of many times they would collaborate. But the next month, the bad omens from the oracle came true. King Areus had died of old age. He will walk in the fields of Elysium along with Leonidas and Testicles. Acritatus II of Sparta was the new king. But it was clear he wasn't in charge anymore. It was Gallienus, the veteran of Italy, who finally redeemed himself in Latium with his many victories. However, what he did with his newly gained power was more questionable than anything the world had ever seen before. He knew this war couldn't be won without more men, and for that they needed large sums of resources and wealth. Something they could only acquire by abandoning Greece. With the Romans in the west, successor states to the east, the Mediterranean to the south, there was only one way to go. He filled up his supply train and ventured north. Only Apollo may know what happens next.